Hello, my dear student. I'm Mr. Kitwala from Educare TZ. I'll be with you in physics for Form 5. And today, my dear student, we are going to proceed with our revision with our topic, which is called the measurements. So, on this topic, my dear student, for today, we are going to see the subtopic of the errors. As you can remember that on the last session, we was ended on the subtopic which is called the physical quantities. So, welcome for this session so that we can see how the errors being a many of the subtopic of the measurements. How this error can occur. How can we define the errors? This is what we are going to see on our topic here. So, my dear student, as we know that when we talk about the error, this is the mistake that occur during the measurements. When you record or you take any measurements, always the wrong data appear during the measurements. Or sometimes we can say that the error is the difference between the actual value and also the measured value. If we take the true value and the minus with the measured value, we obtain the value of errors. Now, the error means the mistake that occur during the experimentation or during the measurements. This make difference between the true value and also the measured values. If you know the true value and you want to take the measurements, kwamba ukishapima pale ukapata data ambao ni tofauti na data ambao ni sahihi, ukitafuta ule utofauti wake ndo utapata errors. This is how we can define the meaning of the error. So, my dear student, even here you can see our definition. First of all, we see about the concept of the errors in the measurements. So, my dear student, an error means is the difference between the measured value and also the true values of the physical quantities. And it represents the degree of uncertainty or inaccuracy associated with a measurement. Always, these errors give the uncertainty and also or inaccurate data during the measurements. Inakuwa inatupatia data ambazo sio za uhakika. That is the meaning of the value of the errors. So, as you can see here, my dear student, that we learn about the error, and this error, my dear student, is divided into two types. You'll be asked to define the term error and also to explain the types of the errors. As I told you that we have only two types of errors. The first one, my dear student, is the systematic errors, and the second is called the random errors. These errors, my dear student, being different, occur in different situations. We can start explaining about the systematic errors. That when we talk about the systematic error, my dear student, this is an errors or the types of error that is caused by instruments. The systematic error erupt due to the causes of the instruments. unajikuta unapokuwa unachukua data, kile kifaa kinapokuwa ni long, basi kitakupelekea wewe kupata data ambazo sio sahihi. So that is the way we can explain about the systematic errors. As you can see here, the instrument that can cause the systematic error is like the rulers, also the beam balance with incorrect scales. If we have the ruler, and that ruler, my dear student, contain the incorrect value, the wrong scales, that will facilitate you to obtain the errors, which is called systematic errors. For instance, for the beam balance is an instrument that is used to measure the mass. So if the beam balance, my dear student, involve the incorrect scales, facilitate you to obtain the error during the measurements. That is why that is how we can explain about the systematic errors. So after understanding the meaning of the systematic errors, but sometimes this is systematic error, my dear student, we term as the error on which the causes is known. Ni zile error ambavyo visababishi vyake vinakuwa vinatambulika. Pale unapokuwa na vifaa unachukua data, alafu ukaobtain data ambazo ni wrong. Those data, it means it occur due to the known reasons or known causes. Kwa sababu ya ile instruments ambao zinakuwa na incorrect scale, zina facilitate the formation of the occurrence of the systematic errors. As you can see here, these errors occur due to the known causes and tends to happen in a systematic pattern. This may happen due to the known causes. For instance, we have seen the examples of the systematic errors, such as rulers and also the beam balance. Those are some of the known causes that can cause the eruption of the systematic errors. So as you can see here, it tends to happen in a systematic pattern. It exists in a systematic pattern. There is the systematic pattern that facilitates the formation of these systematic errors. The instrument that the causes of an error is known. It means kwamba kila ambacho kinakuwa kinasababisha the errors kinakuwa kinatambulika ni kitu gani. Ndio maana amejaribu kutolea mfano ruler. Unapokuwa unachukua labda you measure the length, but those the scale of the ruler is incorrect. That will cause you to obtain the errors, which is called the systematic errors. So here are the specific causes of the systematic errors included. We have several causes of the systematic errors. Baada ya kusoma the definition of the systematic errors, now it is a time to see the causes of the systematic errors. You will be asked that how this systematic error can occur. Now, my dear student, we are supposed to understand these causes of the causes of the systematic error. So there are several causes of the systematic errors. Among of them is during the construction of the instruments. Always the systematic error, my dear student, exists through the presence of an instrument. When the instrument is constructed with the incorrect scales, it means that during the measurements will cause you to obtain the errors, which is called the systematic errors. As you can see here, the sum of the explanation that faulty construct of the instrument itself can lead to inherent inaccuracies. Some of the instrument during the preparation, during the constructions, they faulty. Kufaulty it means kwamba zinakuwa zinapinda. Baadhi ya vifaa vinakuwa na tabia ya kuweza kupinda wakati wa kuchukua zile measurements. So through that may cause you to obtain the incorrect values, the errors. Also here, let us proceed with the explanation that, for example, a poorly calibrated scales might constitute a major object as heavier or lighter than the actual. Here, overall, we explain about the error that exists during the construction of the instrument or during the designing of the instruments, or when we calibrate the scales. Tunapokuwa tunatengeneza zile scale, it means that when we are not careful during preparations, may cause during measurements to obtain the incorrect values. So although you can explain these causes by saying that. So another reason, my dear student, or another causes of this instrument, of this systematic errors, is the calibration of the instrument during the design. The calibration of the instrument during the designing. When we design those instruments, if we are not carefully during the design of the instrument, will cause us to obtain the wrong value during the measurements. So as you can see here, if an instrument is not properly calibrated before or during use, kama some of the instruments are not calibrated. Calibrated, it means kwamba they are not being designed in a correct way. Or during the measurements, unapokuwa hutekelezi vipimo, it means kwamba you will obtain the incorrect values. Either before or during the use, kabla hujaanza kutumia au umeshaanza kutumia hivyo vifaa vyako. Kwa tunatakiwa tuweze kuvihakikisha kwamba je, they are correct these instruments, that we can minimize the errors instead of obtaining more or many systematic error. We obtain the few systematic errors. It can introduce systematic errors. Therefore, during these measurements or before the measurements, this will force us to obtain the systematic errors. So this could involve incorrect zeros, incorrect setting, the use of alternative calibration standards. This calibration of the instrument, my dear student, occur during the incorrect, during when we are not involving the zeros. Pale unapokuwa unapima scale, you take your data, my dear student, either by using the ruler. Kwamba ukianza kupima pale, usipo involve that zeros, itaweza kukusababisha uweze kupata errors, uweze kupata calibrations. that may result to the formation of the systematic errors or incorrect setting. When you are not carefully on setting your instruments, kwamba natakiwa nianze kwenye 0 kuweza kuhesabu, ukaanza kwenye 1. All in all, you will cause the systematic error to occur during the measurements. After there, we have another causes of the instrument, another causes of the systematic errors, my dear student, is the incorrect reading or interpretation of the instruments. When we read or when we interpret this instrument, may cause us to obtain the systematic errors. Most of the people, they are not stable on interpreting the values or the data that they obtain through the instruments, or they are not able to read the values on an instrument, because there are so many problems that face some of the people to be unable identifying or reading the data on the instrument errors. Among of them, most they have the problem, it means defective mechanisms. Wengine wanakuwa na matatizo ya macho. Kwa anapokuwa na matatizo ya macho, it means kwamba hawezi akasoma carefully the reading on an instruments, na hiyo itaweza kumpelekea aweze kupata data ambazo sio sahihi. You can see here that here is the parallax errors that can occur on the interpretation of the instruments. How the parallax error become as the causes of the systematic error, my dear student. So on the parallax error, as you can see here, this occurs when the observer's line of the side is not perpendicular to the instruments. When we obtain these values or the data on an instrument, we are supposed to stand perpendicular with the line or with the line of an instrument. Huwezi ukasoma data zako uko parallel na ile instrument yako. Isa unalula alafu ukasimama parallel. Huwezi ukasoma clearly values. It means you will get the errors, which is called the systematic errors. So we are advised to stand perpendicular during recording or interpreting the values on an instrument, and that is how we can reduce or we can minimize the systematic errors. So leading to inaccurate reading. When you stand, when you stand parallel or when you are not standing perpendicular, it means you will get the wrong measurement, the incorrect values. So after there, on this interpretation of the data or of an instrument, there is the misinterpretations. It means misinterpretations. This is a many of the causes of the systematic error that can occur during the reading or interpretation of an instrument. If the observer misinterprets the instrument readings, example reading the long scales using the long unit, it will introduce the systematic errors. Here we can look on the reading of the instrument, on the reading of the data or the values. When you you are unable to interpret the values, it means you will get the wrong values that cause the occurrence of the systematic errors. We have another causes is the environmental factors. environmental factor, my dear student, can cause the occurrence of the systematic errors. Kwa sababu unapokuwa upo kwenye mazingira ambao sio sahihi, unapokuwa unakusanya data, moja kwa moja utapata data ambazo sio sahihi. Because the environment, my dear student, can cause the instrument to lead or to introduce the wrong value or the incorrect value. You can read here that certain measurement methods may be sensitive to environment like temperature, humidity, or pressures. Most of the instruments, they can be affected by the environmental conditions such as temperature. Kuna baadhi ya vifaa haviruhusu sana kuweza kuvitumia kwenye mazingira ambao kuna temperature ndogo au kuna temperature kubwa. And so on the humidities. Also, we have the human errors. These human errors, my dear student, we are looking about the problem that can face the human body. Kwamba unamkuta mtu mwingine anakuwa na changamoto ya kuweza kusoma data. Hilo na lenyewe ni tatizo ambalo linaweza likapelekea the occurrence of the systematic errors. Another is the limited applicabilities. Here we are going to see how the formula we apply it. Matumizi ya formula. Most of the people they are unable to use their formulas. Kwa kama huna uwezo wa kuweza kuziapply zile formula moja kwa moja, utaweza obtain the systematic errors. So after understanding the causes of the systematic errors, now it is the time to see the ways that we can minimize the systematic errors. Njia ambazo zitaweza kutumika ili kupunguza hizi systematic errors. Error ambazo zinakuwa zinatokea due to the known causes. We have the proper design. We are supposed to design our instrument very carefully. Vile vifaa tunatakiwa tuvitengeneze kwa umakini zaidi ili tuweze kureduce the systematic errors. Another is calibration for the measurement instruments. During calibration of the instrument, we are supposed to be careful so as to reduce the systematic errors. So by saying that, my dear student, there are some tasks here you can try to answer. You are supposed to explain 5 causes of the systematic errors. And also, the second question, explain 3 methods used to minimize the systematic errors. This is some task that you can get for these sessions. So after there, I will conclude by saying that this is the end of our session, my dear student. I would like to invite you again for another session. I wish you all the best.